Good afternoon. Dr. Ian M. Rice earned his master's in occupational therapy from Washington University in 2002 and PhD from the University of Pittsburgh in 2010 in rehabilitation science and technology. Dr. Rice's research interests include the investigation of strategies to maximize occupational performance and quality of life in mobility device users through prevention and mitigation of secondary health complications. Guided by principles in occupational therapy, ergonomics, motor control, and biomechanics, Dr. Rice has developed expertise in investigating upper limb preservation strategies during activities like wheelchair propulsion, transferring, and adapted sports, while accounting for the influence of personal factors and the ambient conditions in which these activities occur. Dr. Rice has instructed both graduate and undergraduate level courses in biomechanics, assistive technology, adaptive physical education, psychosocial aspects of disability, and perceptions of disability through popular culture. Dr. Rice currently serves as an associate teaching professor, the associate head for undergraduate studies in kinesiology, and director, wheelchair biomechanics and performance laboratory in the Department of Kinesiology and Community Health at the University of Illinois, Urbana, Champaign. Additionally, Dr. Rice is a Paralympian in the sport of wheelchair racing, participating in both Sydney, Australia, and Athens, Greece. Dr. Rice has been published in countless journals, written chapters in numerous books, and has inspired people through his public speaking and work throughout the nation. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ian M. Rice.
Test. Oh, it works. Excellent. Hello. It's an honor to be with you here today. And of course, I want to first congratulate the OT class of 24 on this truly amazing accomplishment. It's a privileged position to be in, and you absolutely have superpowers. Right? You are armed with superpowers and nothing but potential. But now the real adventure begins. Right? I too have shared in the adventure of OT from many viewpoints, and thought I might offer a few words of encouragement infused with perspectives from someone who utilizes the principles of OT non-traditionally to study biomechanical, engineering, and exercise physiology aspects of wheelchair-using populations. Although some distance from a clinical setting, the research topics I pursue and my approach are rooted in occupational therapy, meaningful activity, and my own life experiences as someone living with a disability who received OT early on, right? How impactful was that OT that I received? Well, I'm talking about it right now, 30 years later, right? My first exposure to OT was as a patient in 1993 after a college gymnastics injury. Again, as a student here in the 2000s, right? This was Sammy Sosa versus Mark McGuire. This was the Pope strolling through downtown Central West End. I was visited by some Secret Service folks that didn't like my angle on the street. Right, these were good times, right? I later pursued a PhD specializing in biomechanics after an optional research-based fieldwork experience with my OT advisor, mentor, and friend, Dr. David Gray. So now I find myself in an associate professor position at the University of Illinois where I teach, I conduct research in health and kinesiology department. Right? In most, if not all of the settings that I've found myself in the past 10, 12 years, I'm the only OT in the room, right? Indeed, my path has not been traditional or linear, but like many of you, I've had strong opinions and beliefs about the ways that I wanted to make clinical and scientific contributions. And I think it's important to preserve those core beliefs right now, right, as you grow into your careers. Although the formal academic phase of OT has ended, the next you will experience, accelerated learning like never before, but with much higher stakes, right? So this is a scared straight speech, I think. Right? It's not classroom learning, but it's intense and challenging. What I'm trying to say is remember this passion right now, and specifically what attracted you to this point as you proceed, right? Let that guide you. As a 19-year-old OT patient, and I use the word patient intentionally, I was a mess, right? I was not a client, I was an inpatient. And I was immediately touched by occupational therapy, and I wasn't sure that, I'm entirely sure that I didn't recognize it at the time, but the power of therapy when delivered in a way that has salience and meaning to a person, well, it did in that exact moment for me, right? I recognize and experience also the despair and stagnation that occurs when those things are absent, right? Especially after a new catastrophic injury. For example, within days after my injury, I was exposed to the fact by my OT, who was a WashU OT grad, that University of Illinois, the very same place that I acquired my spinal cord injury as a gymnast, had a world-class wheelchair athletics program. I had no idea. I had not a clue, right? That was nutrition for my soul, right? I was able to witness the beauty of wheelchair racing early on. And even though I was nowhere near ready to accept living with a disability or even considering the possibility that I could live happily with a disability, that moment planted a seed that was incredibly impactful. So you, as clinicians and future researchers, are armed with very powerful tools, in part because of this program, right? The science and efficacy of occupational therapy, and the amazing faculty who have guided you to this point, right? You're ready to do this, and never underestimate your ability to facilitate profound positive changes in the lives of the people that you touch, right? When I was an OT student, we were told that OTs can do anything, right? Sounds a little bumper stickerish, right? But it's true. I mean, I've come to realize it's true, right? The potential of OT can be unlocked and applied all over the place in many settings. For example, for many years now, I've been conducting research and teaching in academic environments far removed from the world of OT, but I think to great effect, right? At times, I feel like an undercover occupational therapy agent, right? Subtly, and not so subtly, advocating for research design choices and even curriculum that are better calibrated to reflect occupation, meaningful activity, right? I've also had the opportunity and privilege to attract many undergraduates to the field of OT and to this school specifically, right? So I'm really here to collect on that, right? So OT sweatshirt, coffee mugs, I'll be waiting out back. So I've worked with engineers, right, at the tail end of their PhDs and exposed them to OT principles during that research and design process, which provoked them to pursue clinical degrees right after that PhD, right? It's evident in these discussions when the light bulb appears over a student's head and they realize, my gosh, I have no idea who I'm designing for, and I've failed to recognize the life factors which stand in between the technology or intervention and ultimately, that recipient. What's efficient and practical from an engineering perspective may not be compatible with a person's motivations, goals, or life experiences, right? Similarly, I've had the privilege to work with brilliant colleagues who have unimaginable technical abilities, but need our help. They need the help of the science of occupational therapy to understand, right, how people with disabilities may move, how they may complete activities of daily living, or perhaps most importantly, recognize the environmental and psychological barriers which prevent use of well-designed assistive technologies. Right? There's so many factors to consider when optimizing for the match between person and technology. AT abandonment, right? It's a huge healthcare drain, it's a drain economically, but more importantly in terms of the devastation on quality of life, right? Why would someone not use a technology they're prescribed when it has all the potential in the world to be of benefit, right? The answer is nuanced and complicated, but a good place to start is thoroughly evaluating that match or fit between person and technology, right? Insert PEO model here, right? We use physics, we use evidence-based practice, we use clinical practice guidelines to inform treatment or research, but if we underestimate what's salient to the whole person, we can really miss the mark and lose the opportunity to make profound impact. Right? Let the evidence guide you, but don't let your people skills or empathy atrophy. Right? So stay connected with the people and clients you serve. How you remain empathetic, alert, and sensitive to the needs of your clients and to others, well, that's kind of the trick. Right? For me, living with my own disability and vulnerabilities keeps me grounded and motivated, as does working with students and colleagues. For better or for worse, I can't help but stumble into my own awkward life predicaments. Like right now, I'm raising twins with a rotator cuff that looks like a war zone, right? And a busy schedule. I've got to pick them up for gymnastics practice 3 hours away in about 4 hours, right? Navigating life scenarios like this and seeing others wrestle with disability-specific health conditions complicates and reminds me of why I'm in the research game to begin with. As an academic in the business of keeping wheelchair users happy, healthy, participating, and pain-free, we often function based on the premise that it's not the disability that disrupts quality of life, it's the secondary health complications which emerge and then devastate, right? I can confirm and absolutely relate. However, navigating solutions without considering the person and occupation can be problematic, and at the very least lead us to oversimplify solutions. For example, right, unlike disability itself, secondary health conditions like cardiovascular disease, obesity, upper limb repetitive strain, they're all modifiable, they're preventable. We can do something about those things, right? We can't cure many disabilities, but we can cure, prevent, manage all of these secondary complications. But why aren't people modifying these things well, right? Another common phrase I use in grants and papers all the time, right? It makes me almost sick to read them because they're so overused, but there's truth to them, right? If physical activity and exercise were a medication, it would be the most potent tool known to humankind for ameliorating diseases due to sedentary lifestyle. Again, true. We know this is true. We know this intellectually to be true, but people with disabilities remain among the most sedentary in society. Right? While there's truth to these statements, many are quick to judge and perhaps oversimplify or ignore the factors which drive human behavior. Right? You can't ignore the facilitators and barriers that people must navigate to achieve some desirable outcome. However, we as OTs and undercover OTs are uniquely positioned to intervene and inform clinical practice with one hand on the evidence and another on the whole person. Right? My OT training has helped me to better advocate for solutions, and it'll serve you in whatever form of practice you seek. Never underestimate your ability to make great contributions to the field and to the lives of those you treat. Congratulations and good luck.